Hey, welcome to All About the Game. My name is Todd Blyleven. I'm joined by my co-host, Mike Micucci. Welcome to the show, Mike.
What's up, Todd? How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. We got episode 11 today.
Yeah, that's a big one, huh?
Yeah,
Can't believe it.
yeah,
I'm
double digits.
waiting till you see this guy today. You're gonna
Yeah.
like this one.
So
He
you and
is a
Denny,
true character.
yeah, you guys, where did you guys first meet then?
So we met. I was with the Angels as the field coordinator with the Angels. Denny was with Baltimore, I believe, and was he's a West Coast kid, Southern California.
Yeah.
And he was just looking, everything in Baltimore is like almost by Baltimore. All the affiliates are like within driving distance and stuff like that. So he was trying to I think he talked to the farm director over there, is trying to get to a West Coast team if somebody had something or whatever. And then, farm directors kind of reach out to each other. And then I get a call from my farm directors like, hey, I want you to kind of call and talk to this guy on the phone. We wind up talking to Denny and, kind of hiring him to come on and with the Angels, and then we were Angels and Mariners together. But a great story, of how he got drafted and got to the big leagues. But like really good eye, great guy to talk to, sees the game very well, does a great job developing kids, attention to detail type guy, but just the little intricacies about the game and things that when you play in the big leagues for that long of a period of time and you have that much success, there's different things that you see that the ordinary player or, definitely the ordinary fan can't see. And the way he teaches infield play is really unique, and he's got a really good eye and the footwork and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how we kind of met, and a really good baseball mind and a really good friend.
That's awesome. Yeah, Denny and our paths have crossed before, being in Southern California and then just in baseball, and then with my dad, being the announcer with the Twins and being part of that organization for so long.
Yeah.
He took him and Denny really got along well, and so it's cool to hear some stories just coming from my dad about when my dad likes somebody, he's not afraid to talk about it. And the name will get brought up in a lot of different stories, and Denny's a name that always gets brought up. So I'm really excited to have him on the show today. And also too, I mean, he's a dad, so he's got a son that's playing in Southern California. I think he said at Servite High School down there in Orange County. And, so he's going through kind of what you and I are going through too with our kids. And he'll talk a little bit about that and kind of
I remember Jared just running around the clubhouse when he was, younger, and you can just see like bat and glove always in his hand,
That's cool.
With the trash talk with the best of them.
Really?
Yeah. Just this like confidence that he have, and like go out there, get in with the group. Hey man, it's my turn. I'm hitting fourth in this group, type of kid. And I'm like, here, no problem. I'll throw to you, and be swinging pretty good. I'm like, man. So now he's a junior. So yeah, he's pretty good. And he's got twin daughters that are like elite soccer players. Also, right. I remember that going through it. And I think they were both at one getting recruited they were all getting recruited at the same schools. And I think he was thinking they were both going to go to USC, but they wound up splitting, I think.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. There's some serious athletes in that family.
Well, I mean, Denny's a serious athlete as well, just being a utility guy for that long a period at the major league level. So, I mean, you got to be athletic to be able to bounce around. And you made a comment a couple shows back about a player you were working with your team, and you had to move him from the left side to the right side. And the kid says, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And you said, you can field a ground ball, right? Well, it's just over on the other side.
Ground ball, it's just over here.
Yeah. So, but it really,
at the big league level, it's a lot different. The angles are different. The way the ball comes off the bat, the spin, to be able to go from to play second base. I think if you're a left side of the infielder and they ask you to play second base, I think that's a really hard move. The double play, a lot of things at your back that you're not used to, Whereas when you're on the left side, a lot of stuff's to the front and you're moving towards the base. So that's really tough. I think going, being a utility guy where you play second, you play third, you go to left, you go to right, and just being in the corners is pretty hard the way the ball slices off the bats. The different stadiums, how the ball carries in different stadiums, dealing with the backdrops and stuff like that. So
Yeah, it's difficult.
to have that kind of athleticism, to be able to do that at the highest level, is an unbelievable skill set.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's not high school ball where the exit velocity is coming off at 84, 85. Maybe it's that hard. Maybe you get some kids 90, 92, you're elites. But at the big league level, it's 96, 97, 115.
103, 106,
Yeah, crazy.
a
Well,
lot.
I see he just entered.
Yeah.
So he's in the waiting room, in the Zoom waiting room. Are we ready to start this show?
Show 11. Let's do it.
Let's go. Hey, welcome back to All About the Game. I'm Todd Blyleven, joined by my co-host Mike Micucci, and we have a special guest today, Denny Hocking. Thanks for joining us, Denny.
Absolutely,
Denny?
it's my pleasure. What's up, Coach? What's up, Todd?
Hey, glad to have you aboard here, man. Look forward to talking some baseball. And Mike and I, this is our 11th show, so we should be considered professionals now at this. But we've had some great guests, and just add another one. It's just awesome to be sitting here talking to you from across the country. We're both in Texas, and through all this COVID stuff, but giving people something to listen to and just talk about the game. It's been exciting.
Yeah, anytime I get a chance to talk baseball, man, especially with one of my guys, Coach, I'm always looking forward to it. So excited to listen, excited to get some knowledge, excited to drop some knowledge.
Yeah, for
Awesome.
sure.
So, Denny, tell us a little bit, just kind of what's going on. You're in Southern California. You're kind of working, kind of doing the same thing, working out of a facility. Give us a little background there. I know people that want to follow you on Twitter. It's at Big League Swings. It's always an interesting thing to get on the Twitter and get your insights on the game and a lot of things going around. So just kind of give the people a little bit of what's going on with you.
Well, right now, I'm not doing a whole lot. Obviously, with COVID, my job was supposed to be managing the Modesto Nets in the California League for the Mariners. Obviously, COVID hit, got sent home. Haven't really done much at all. The facilities that I normally give lessons at in Yorba Linda has been closed down for a while. I've tried to use this opportunity to spend time with my daughters. They're going to be juniors this year. at USC and University of Arizona. So having them home for the majority of this time, it's been really nice being home for the summer and being dad and going to Lake Havasu and hanging out with them and going down to Newport. So being a dad during this time with my family has been phenomenal. You know, having an opportunity to go out to Arizona for a perfect game tournament to watch Jared play, who will be a junior at Survey this year. So I've actually, first time in 12 years, we had a family vacation. So it's been pretty cool. As far as lessons go, it's been weird. As I look up and down my Rolodex of my kids giving lessons to, very few of them are actually preparing for something, you know. They're not preparing for perfect game tournaments. I've got a lot of younger kids whose tournaments have been canceled, Little League's been canceled. So you just sit there and you're like, well, there's really no need, you know. Let's just kind of go over some drills that you can keep yourself fresh on. But being in a cage, I haven't really been in a cage very often. And be a touch and feel here, you know, of getting a guy, you know, prepared, setting up a velo machine for a tournament. But other than that, I'm just social distancing, wearing my mask, and just enjoying my time with my family.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's funny, Todd, to just hear how different parts of the country are different. We're, you know, listening to Denny, we're way more open here in Texas and what's going on. I mean, the kids are going to tournaments, aren't canceling. They are trying to get ready for fall ball and getting ready for the perfect game. I know Dylan just went out to a perfect game. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So Dylan, my son's going to be a junior. Well, he started today. I mean, they started their e-learning. I've got a daughter that's a freshman, started her first day of high school on the computer, sitting in her bedroom. So I get it, man. I mean, it's tough being a dad in these times. But yeah, Dylan just went to a perfect game showcase this last weekend. And, you know, people are walking around wearing their masks, of course, when you're close to people, but people are spreading out, taking their mask off. It was a beautiful Texas weekend. But, you know, you wouldn't know that we were having a pandemic on the field with all the players. They played a couple games. So it was fun watching them play and getting out there. And then, I mean, Mike, you're doing lessons, you know, over at the ACES facility with the Tigers. And, you know, obviously there's social distancing stuff, but it's weird to see the different parts of the country where Texas and Arizona's open, Florida's open, but then Cali is closed.
New York, the East Coast, and so every place is a little bit different. Yeah, even that pastime, doing our stuff there. Well, school was out, so it was kind of summertime hours. I was kind of in there by myself from like 9 a.m. pretty much until about 2, and I would try and roll out of there before, you know, other people started rolling in. Just kind of protect ourselves that way.
I mean, you look at too, like Denny brought up, you know, the routine that these players are trying to go through. I mean, I got a text message last night from one of Dylan's buddies that he played with in California, you know, a few years back, and he just committed to Cal State Northridge, which was pretty cool. The kid's going to be a senior over at Marina High School next year. But they're not doing anything. So all the California kids have to travel to Arizona to go play. You're hoping you can get on a roster somewhere. Yeah. So what does that routine look like? We're here. Dylan had a 7 a.m. workout at his high school, you know, on field. They're running and they're doing their thing and practicing like normal baseball stuff. So it's interesting the different types of messaging you have to put down and really just try to be that mentor to these players in this time, those 2021 grads, 22s, you know, our kids that are juniors, these up and coming kids that they're not really affected by it because by the time the college stuff, you know, gets settled down, the NCAA just, you know, push back their dead period to September 31st now or 30th. They're not, you know, no coaches are going to be getting out of the field. So it's a great time to develop, kick back, learn your game, learn what your routine is, you know, your approach, and listen to guys like, you know, you and Mike just talk baseball, man. I mean, I would love for, you know, Dylan just learn more. So
like an extended off season also for some of these guys. Like, you know how hard it is when you're playing and you're competing and you're having a tournament every weekend. to really make the necessary changes, maybe in your swing or in your game or defensively, things that need to be done. But then when you're not going out competing every day, you can kind of work on maybe a different, attack something mechanically with your swing, or attack something, or add a pitch with your breaking ball. I'm going to learn a different pitch as a pitcher or whatever that you can't do going from week to week. So there's ways to look at what's going on in the country and, flip the script and turn it into a positive. Maybe it's about developing their body, speed and agility, and spending more time in the weight room and doing stuff like that. So there's always ways to get better.
What's cool is having the opportunity to spend this time around my son Jared, and he's being recruited by some colleges, but he can't really figure out where he wants to go because the campuses are closed, so he can't go see it. And those are important factors for him making an ultimate decision. But I heard somebody say one time, what you do in the dark shows up in the light. And it really made me think about that statement was, what are you doing right now as an athlete, either professional athlete, an amateur athlete? What are you doing to get better? A lot of times, like you said, the country's different right now. You have access to a bunch of things in Texas. You have very limited access to things in California. Jared can't even go to his high school and play catch with a high school teammate. They don't want him touching the same baseballs and things of that nature. But so having the opportunity to be your own coach, how much do you push yourself? Where are you learning from? Are you learning from books? Are you learning from podcasts? Are you going over friends' houses? Are you taking live at bats? And so when you're really preparing, I think this is really what's going to separate. I know locally out here, for me, the work that you're individually doing away from everybody else is really what's going to separate you come time when everybody gets together. And it's like I told my son, look, dude, you're at this level right here. How do you get to that next level? How do you pass a guy on your team? How do you become a starter? How do you, elevate yourself? And you want to be able to be prepared for what you're doing when everything gets back at it. And so after my explanation is you get back in it with your baseball team, you're practicing, and after that first week, your coach is sitting in a room, they all talk. You want them to be like, hey, just see the one kid? My God, he looks bigger, he looks stronger, he looks faster, he looks more explosive. Like, if you can have them talk about you in ways like that, like, you're going to be ahead of the game. So it's been a great opportunity for me really to watch Jared and kind of push him, just get him on the road, the correct road, and not really have to push him because he has an agenda. And I think that's for all kids. What are you doing? What you're doing in the dark will certainly show up when the lights come on.
That's a great statement. You talk about, sitting in the coach's room, and I was thinking, well, we did it in Tempe a lot, right?
Oh.
One of the best conversations you have, sitting around listening to you, Omar Vizquel, and Tim Bogart talk about how to play infield. It's just like, you just sit in the corner and you've got these three just wizards talking about how to approach slow rollers and different kind of how to read hops and, footwork and attacking the ball and all these different things. And it's funny. One of the things that would always come up in those conversations was always about kids don't watch the game enough. Yeah. Now we have this perfect opportunity. Go and just turn on the TV, watch the game, and just, oh no, they're playing this and that and Fortnite and all this other stuff going on. But, how are you gaining information? How are you gaining a competitive advantage right now? And some things are physical and a ton of it is mental that you can do.
There's so many tools now that players can use, and in today's technological times. And I'm not going to try to promote it, but obviously, like what we're doing with the Scout Hub, where we're providing opportunities for kids to submit videos in and get evaluated by MLB coaches and scouts and get corrective feedback, so they can train and track their journey and trending reports. And, those are being used in college recruiting now. And where it stems is that foundation, like we're talking about, what you do in the dark shows up in their life. That should be a t-shirt phrase. That's such a great term to use. But With Dylan, it's the same way. It's probably Jared. Like, for a while he couldn't go to the park, and play catch with his buddy, and so you lose that time. But he would be in the backyard, like carrying these big old boulders around, and he's like just this caveman stuff. And we've got a weight room, but like he liked getting out and just doing, just tough, rigged stuff. And so he's grown. But as a scout, you walk into a ballpark and you're looking at 4 or 5 guys, area codes is going on. And I mean, what are those separators? And when you saw a kid a few months back, and then you come back now and he's a little bit beefed up, maybe he's more flexible, maybe he's got more extension, he's got a little more pop in the barrel, he's a little bit more smooth in his actions. That's like, it instantly clicks.
Stands out.
Yeah, I love that.
It stands out.
And it's funny because, Todd, what you're talking about is, you walk out of the field and how are you going to get noticed? And I think people, when they watch the game, especially scouts, whether it be college or pro, you guys go to watch these kids, and you have a roster, you have an idea of who you want to look at, and first you're obviously there to see everybody, but you kind of have that pecking order. And when you watch a kid walk out of a dugout who's 6'4", 230, you're like, oh, okay, you're expecting something when this kid walks up to the plate, so then all of a sudden you're expecting loud noises, bat speed, strength, and you get a 18 hopper the opposite way through a hole, and you're like, so I think that's where, what are you doing now for when you get in front of everybody? How are you gonna get noticed? Your physical stature, kind of brings bigger expectations, or should I say certain expectations. You being in that scouting world, you see a little kid on the mound, you're like, what do we got here? And he comes out and just starts pumping. You're like, whoa, hang on a second here. So those are the cool things about right now, even though you can't be in a competitive environment like we normally would be, you can still create competitiveness within your workouts. And what are you really training for? And I've had these conversations with kids, you're in high school, what are you training for? Oh man, I want to have a really good year this year. Is that it? So that's what you want to do. You want to train and have a really good year this year. Great. And then what? Restart the next year. So it's really, what are you training for? And I try to talk to the kids about, if you're in high school, what are you training for? You're training to go to college. Once you get to college, what are you training for? You're training to get drafted. Once you get drafted, and this is the biggest misnomer that I hear in professional baseball right now, is, oh man, COVID's so tough. The other day I threw a pen. I threw some live ABs, and it's tough because the guys that I'm pitching against are high school guys, so they're really not the same competitive level. So I'm making mistakes, but guys aren't hitting them. It's just tough to focus because there's no umpire, there's no fans in the stands, and I'm like, what are you training for? Like, are you training to throw a good session of live at bats? Why aren't you training to be a big leaguer? And when you have that mindset and you're just training your body, but unless you're training when you're working, unless you're training your mind also and long term, then I don't think you're maximizing what you're putting into it.
No, it's the expectations too. You're just out there, and it's like, it doesn't really matter because it's not a game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
Especially more now in the pro game, where every single thing you do is monitored, calculated. There's a stat for.
Yeah.
You can't all of a sudden just flip the light switch and go, okay, we're ready to get tracked now. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
No, you talk about that. It's I try to tell, kids all the time, especially from the scouts perspective or a college recruiter's perspective, especially kids our age. When I come out to a ball game, I go to a PG event in Peoria or Atlanta or wherever, I'm bouncing from field to field. And yes, I've got a list of prospects I'm going to see, but I'm going to stop when I see that 6'4" left-hander or that 5'10" right-hander pumping some cheddar. I'm going to stop and I'm going to identify like the mechanics. I want to see the beast. I want to see some pitchability. I want to see some arm strength. Like where's the separator there? And if you're giving me just kind of this nonchalant attitude, like you're doing it every day, and there's no, like you just said, there's no long-term vision that I can project out of you being a major league player, I'm walking.
Yeah.
Or if your mechanics are horrible and you're rolling over on balls constantly, maybe I like the body, so I'm going to give you a second look, and then I come back, I'm gone. So that beast, you really have to learn how to become the lion in the dark, like you're saying, because we can all become that lion right now because we've trained for that over our lifetime, to where when that light switch flips, I'm a different animal.
Yeah.
My nice guy stuff comes off, and I guarantee you that's the way you guys are too. And
It's
so,
funny. It's funny
Yeah.
you say that, because, even like coaching the 16, the select team, the 16U team, the first thing I tell the kids is like body language. That's the first thing I look for. Guys that have energy and body language. How's your body language when things aren't going well? When I walk to a field, I shouldn't know what the score is based on what's going on. I should walk. If I just enter the field and I see two teams playing, I should not be able to sit there and look around and be like, okay, that team's losing by a lot, and this team's winning or whatever. You shouldn't know if your team's kind of going about it the right way. So I look for that, and I talk to my team about it. But it's funny that, like, as soon as I get to the dugout and the game starts, like, boy, I want to win so bad, and just like that competitiveness comes out, and like that fire, and trying to teach kids and talk to them about, like, when you cross that line, you got to be willing to get after it, and you just have to have that kind of mentality. And it kind of, Denny, it happens in everything. Once you learn it there, kind of learn it in every little thing. I remember you and Jared, right, playing basketball in the clubhouse or whatever. There's no way Jared was going to win.
No. And I think that anybody can compete. Anybody can compete, but there's different levels of being able to compete. How bad do you want it? And I think that's one of the separators too, when you look at, baseball. Like, what are you willing to do to get better? Are you willing to use your resources? Are you willing to, maximize your gym membership? Are you willing to, oh man, you play catch today? No, nobody's going to play catch with me. Really? There's a wall out there. Things like that you can figure out, that if you're not being your best coach, then how much are you really competing against anything?
Yeah. How bad do you really want it?
Yeah.
Good point. You've got such a great story too, and just to hear you talk, and being drafted out of college, and probably not the draft selection you would have wanted in that battle you had to pursue going through the minor league. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like? Not everybody gets to the big leagues and has the storybook career like you had as a first round draft pick. So what was your journey like from college and going through that?
It was really unique in a bizarre way, how I was a better high school basketball player than I was a high school baseball player. And I actually was going to go to a Cal State school to play basketball. When I was at the college, but getting ready, I wanted to also play baseball, still continue my baseball journey. So I walked into the coach's office and said, hey, you know what? Look, I'm coming here to play basketball. I'd love to be a two-sport athlete. Where would I fit in on the baseball team? And he was like, you're not good enough to play here. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I kind of started to evaluate, like, how much is basketball how far is it going to take me? And I quickly said, well, it's going to get me an education. That's about it. And that's great. But I still had passion to play baseball. So I turned the scholarship down, wound up going to a junior college to play baseball. But yet I was going to study journalism, because I was going, yeah, you know what? It would be cool to be a reporter, stay in baseball, go to clubhouses, interview guys, maybe work for a network, do a talk show, radio show, all of that stuff. Like, that was my vision. And after my freshman year, I wound up getting something in the mail. It was a package from the Minnesota Twins, and it said I've been drafted, and it had like a VCR tape of them winning the '87 World Series. And I'm like, and I'm trying to read this letter, and I look at my friend, and I'm like, what does this mean? He goes, you've been drafted. I'm like, yeah, okay, but so what's that entail? I mean, it's not like MLB Network was at my house setting up the lights for me to get a reaction when I got drafted. So he said, you can sign a professional baseball contract and go play minor league baseball. I'm like, oh, so I get a call from a scout, Earl Frischman, of the Twins, and he comes to my house. He's like, hey, look, first thing he says to me is, hey, man, congratulations on us drafting you, but we have no intentions to sign you. Oh, okay. That's cool. So learning about that process, and then I got drafted after my freshman year at El Camino Junior College. After my freshman year and getting drafted, I wound up strictly playing shortstop my sophomore year. But I two of my buddies were left-handed hitters on the team. We spent every day in the summer in the cage at the college learning how to hit left-handed. So I learned how to hit left-handed between my freshman and sophomore years of college, and wound up playing the season and then signing with the Twins before the next year's draft. And I remember stepping in the batter's box, my first professional at bat, left-handed, going, what am I doing? I had been hitting left-handed for less than a year, and I remember getting a hit going, okay, I'm all in now. So that was kind of my journey, and it's fun to talk about because not everybody is a first round draft choice. I mean, there's 30 of them. There's compensation picks. Everybody's journey is completely different. And it's, what do you have to go through? What are you willing to go through? And what are you willing to push through in order to reach an ultimate dream?
It's such a great story. I had heard that you were a pretty good basketball player in high school, and the fact that coaches, just literally tell kids, and how true it is, you're just not good enough, and your lion came out, and it's going. Like Steve Springer has a similar story, in path where went to a junior college, ended up at a 4-year, and it's just kind of this no, you're not good enough, and perseverance wins. It's awesome.
And you got drafted where they don't even draft that deep anymore.
Yeah.
I did too. You got drafted in such a late round, like those rounds don't even exist anymore.
It was cool. It was the 52nd round. So being a trivia question, the lowest player ever drafted to play in the big leagues. And it's cool. It's not just, hey, this kid was drafted and he got a September call up. I mean, the length that I had in the big leagues at the level that I was, at the round I was drafted, I take it to heart that that's never, I won't say never. I mean, we could go back to 60 rounds, but not in the near future. But being a 52nd round draft choice and making it to major leagues and sticking with
13 years playing for the Twins in the heyday, and when I started coaching, managing, and then becoming, the field coordinator and director and stuff like that, you're always trying to get your organization to play good, sound, fundamental baseball. From top to bottom, starting out in rookie ball all the way up until they get to the big leagues. What happens at the big league level, like those mistakes are just magnified if you can't play good, sound baseball. And everybody always looked to the Twins. The Twins were probably the most fundamentally sound organization, from the mid 80s to mid 90s to late 90s. And a lot of that goes to Tom Kelly. And I know Tom, you played for Tom for a long time. You're probably the first super utility player that started the trend that's now happening all over the place, where you can play short, you can play third, you play second, all of a sudden you're in left field, you're in right field, and that asset that to be able to play multiple different positions, I know it keeps you in the league for a really long time, and I know TK probably leaned on you a lot, especially coming off the bench.
Well, there was some, when I got to the big leagues, I was fortunate enough to be around guys like Chip Hale and Jeff Rebele, and Chip Hale's still in the game, and he's a coach maybe at Oakland. I know he's had some. He's.
I think he's with the Nationals now. I think he's with the Nationals last year. He's over there with Bogey.
Okay. But I was fortunate enough to watch those guys go about their business, and they were very selfless. And they said, look, this is what you have to do. This is how you're trying to prepare during BP. This is how you're trying to prepare once the game starts. As the game's moving on, this is where you might fit in. So I was really educated by those two guys about how to be ready for my job. And then once I was in that role, it was about earning the trust of my manager. And what I mean by that is just, as a manager, you want to be able to go, okay, I need this right now. Who can provide it? And just look down the bench and go, oh, that guy. And know that he was going to be ready. And even though it could be a pinch hit, you could go up and punch out. Oh, he wasn't ready to hit. No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Is he prepared? And am I willing to fail with this person going up there in the biggest moment because I know that he is prepared? And it's kind of funny how, you grow into that role and then you start to adapt. And then when you move into the coaching side, you start to look around. And Mike, you've done this too, where being at an affiliate, you come into town and, you're working a guy and this and that. And all of a sudden you look up and somebody that's doing nothing catches your eye. And it could be a second baseman. You're like, wow, that's weird. He didn't turn one double play today in BP, and he took 5 ground balls. He never threw the ball to first.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he has a throwing error. And it's funny because you're kind of like,
I know, between the BP,
you just have to run it back.
And we'd go, to have our thing. I'd be like, hey, Denny, it's pretty interesting. So-and-so didn't do anything today out there. Let's see how that plays out.
That's weird, because that's the game, just sitting there, finding you in difficult spots. But going back to TK, I loved playing for TK. He prepared us, and this is back when the analytics wasn't like it is today, but he would prepare you, and a lot of it was of what you're gonna face. But he was so good at mentally getting to you and challenging you in ways. And I can remember we'd play the Yankees, and the Yankees would come to the Metrodome, and it's hey, who we facing this series? Like, you get Pettit, Wells, and Cone. The good news is you miss Mussina. You're like, oh, great, So we'd be doing our hitters meeting, and TK would walk through. I don't know what you guys are going over, You guys ain't going to hit these guys. There's 6 Cy Youngs over there, blah, blah, blah. And we're over here going, wait, what? Oh, you know what? We'll show you. And you look up and, you split a 4-game series with them, or you win 2 or 3. And, as you're leaving after that 3rd game, you walk by his office. He's over here smoking a cigar, Red Auerbach style, See you later, Skip. And he's like, and he's over there just playing that mind game. But I look back on it, and it was just, he had ways to challenge you in ways that you didn't realize. And so I think we are a product of who we enjoy being around. And I know, Mike, you've been around some great, knowledgeable, influential people in the game, and how you cater your dugout, you cater your clubhouse. I'm kind of the same way. There's a lot of stuff that I do on the field, and I go, oh my gosh, that was so Tom Kelly.
Yeah.
And but it was because of how I was able to grow in the game and what they stood for, and just the work ethic and the attention to detail, I think has given me the opportunity not only to stay in the game, but to be able to, as a player and a coach, but to be able to grow the game, hopefully every time I'm on the field.
Danny, you got to tell everybody the story when the fans were yelling for you.
Wait, which one is this?
The one where in
spring training.
Right. You can tell Todd this story and let the viewers hear this one. This is a treat.
So being a utility guy in spring training, you go on every road trip, you caddy for everybody. It's like, I probably started in my 13 spring trainings. I probably started about 8 games. It's always going on the road. sixth inning, you're like, can I get in the bat, Skip? Like, oh yeah, oh hey, go ahead. Or it's hey, you know what? I just kind of brought you on this trip because the guy was a little twinged up, and we were hoping he was going to make it, and he did. So we're not going to need you today. And I'm like, really? So I'm in Clearwater, and I took a 4-hour bus trip to come up here for as insurance. Are you kidding me? My wife's got twins back at home, right? That are like a year old. I'd be probably more valuable back there. But thanks a lot. But we're in Fort Myers, and this is, I don't know, probably my second spring training in the big leagues. And apparently there was a group of college kids on spring break. So we're sitting there. It's early in this game, and all of a sudden you hear this chant of "We want Denny, we want Denny," and I'm like, what's going on over here? Like, I have no idea, right? It's not like I left 40 tickets or anything like that. So I hear these guys, and all of a sudden Tom Kelly looks down the bench and goes, "Dennis." The only guy that called me Dennis. He's like, "Dennis, come here." And I'm like, "Oh, man, all right, cool." I'm thinking I'm getting in the game, and I run down. I'm like, okay, I know my gloves out. I know my bat's out. Sweet, okay. And they go down. I'm like, "Yeah, Skip." He goes, "Why don't you go up there and see what those people want?" All right, let me bow out. I'll be down here in the corner sulking. Thanks, Skip. But yeah, that was a funny moment. I remember telling Mike that story, and he was cracking up. So it's always a humbling story, But it really kind of shows.
We have some funny ones. We pull on some players, and I've done a few of my own. There was a guy sitting there on the bench, one day, and we were in Double-A sometimes, and the pitchers, they would always think they had a chance to get in the game, pinch run. Something, you know how pitchers are, Todd, right? Dying to get in the game, right? They think they can hit whatever. And I call one of them over, and I'm like, "Hey, come on over here." He comes over. I'm like, "Hey, are your legs loose? You ready to go?" And then he starts like running in place. He's like, "Oh yeah," you could see him stretching. He's like, "Yeah, my legs are loose." I'm like, "Awesome. Why don't you run up to the clubhouse and get me a cup of coffee?"
And what's great is when other people know that you're doing that, and they're kind of eyeballing you like this.
You're like, "Oh, this poor guy."
Like, "Oh, Skip, that's messed up."
Unbelievable. Well, you got a chance to get into doing some of that journalism stuff too when you got done playing. How did you enjoy that with MLB.com and working with Dibble too?
It was great. Once I got out of the game, I was working for MLB.com, so I was going and covering, some big series here in Southern California, Dodger Stadium or at Anaheim Stadium, and then when the playoffs would start, being able to go down there, and it gave me an opportunity to hear some really good stories. Guys like when David Ortiz had played with the Minnesota Twins, who'd gone over to Boston, and I remember he told me we were looking at Dustin Pedroia, and this is, I think, when Pedroia was either going to be the MVP that year or the year prior to it. And I was just, "Hey, man, Poppy, tell me about Pedroia." And he's like, "Hey, Poppy, look," he goes, there's a couple guys in the league that I'd back the truck up for, as in the Brinks truck, and pay them whatever they needed. And he goes, "Poppy, that guy, I'd back the truck up for him." And then it was funny because as he was talking about that, Frankie Rodriguez was walking close in the area. He goes, "Yeah, I'd back the truck up for that guy too." And you remember, K-Rod back with the Angels, how filthy he was and how integral he was in their 0-2 run, one of those key cogs. But, just being able to work in the media side, I think was really cool, because players treat you different than they do a reporter. Somebody that hasn't been in the game, I don't want to say that there's just a different aura. And I think you can ask different questions as a former player, but I think your questions come from a different place as well, from having done it. So I really enjoyed covering that aspect of it. Going into sports talk radio, working for Fox, and having a call-in show with Dibble was awesome. He is obviously a fan favorite, a household name, well known throughout the country, and he's got a great following. So people would call in and just want to talk to him about the Nasty Boys or a fight that he had or what have you. But his knowledge of the game, both from the offensive side and the pitching side, was really cool to be around. And he would break down stuff and educate me on different things with the pitching side as well. So when I first started learning about that pitching side and doing sports talk radio was probably listening to him on the radio as well.
Yeah, I think too, it's really interesting. I love talking to pitchers, how they read swings, how they can find little holes, how they know how to use their stuff. I think that's the big thing. Young kids really don't know what to do is they don't know how to use their stuff, whatever stuff they have, and then they don't know how to read swings and get the pitches to complement each other.
Go ahead, Todd.
No, I was just going to say, I agree. I think, watching my dad go through that journey that you went through with, going from player to becoming he worked for ESPN and did some college stuff. But then when he landed the Twins gig and he really started getting into it, he loved going down on the field because there's that, like you said, there's that camaraderie with the players anyways. And he was not too far off of retirement with it. So he got a chance to talk to the pitchers, loved breaking the game down. But what happened was, and I'm not calling anybody out on this, all of a sudden the pitching coach kind of got a little maybe offended because pitchers were starting to go to my dad for different pitching advice. And my dad had to kind of take a step back and say, okay, I guess this is my new role now. So I can still be here for advice. I'm going to talk about the game. He loves sharing the game with everybody. But there was also that role of the coaches too, that they're trying to instill these routines with players. And so it had to have been kind of a tough kind of walk, fine line between being that journalist reporter trying to catch stories and then also getting into the kitchen of, hey, let's talk baseball and I can share some things with you. So,
yeah, you're watching somebody turn double plays and stuff like that, and you're like, footwork's a little late, or his hands aren't in the right position, or his attack angle's not quite right, But you're the reporter, you can't really roll in there.
Yeah, but on the other side of it too, it's baseball, and I think that's where the egos in our game need to calm down a little bit and understand that we can all learn from everybody. I mean, think about all the people that growing up in our game, between the three of us here, all the different types of coaches that you encountered that opened up their door to give you their knowledge. The people that weren't your coaches that were maybe, just side talk that you ran into, certain players you learned from. And I think as long as you can keep that open mind and be able to give back like you're doing, Denny, and Mike with the younger kids now and giving lessons and, really talking about the mental approach and building that foundation is awesome. So, hey, I wanted to ask you guys, so did you see Greinke last night?
Zach Greinke, man, I tell you what, he was a teammate of mine when I was in Kansas City, but what a great dude. I think highly misunderstood, but I think he kind of goes about it as a dilligaff, and I remember he walked into Allard Baird's office in spring training, and he literally sat down in his office. Now, this is a story that I got, was he sat down in the general manager's office and said, hey, Skip, look, hey, look, I don't think I should be the number one pitcher here. And it was kind of like, wait, what? What do you mean? He goes, yeah, I think playing once every 5 days really doesn't serve this team justice. So what I think is I should just take over the starting shortstop job, and I think I'd impact this team more. and the GM was like, yeah, you need to get out of my office. I think he wound up going out and winning the Cy Young that year or the year after that. But just the confidence about him. And I love how, for me, looking at him doing that, he trusts his stuff so much that he's like, you know it's coming, but if I locate it, it doesn't matter. And I think in that same mold from as I watch games and stuff, I think Trevor Bauer's like that too. Guys with really good stuff, be able to locate their fastballs, have an idea, and then the secondary stuff is really elite. Being able to have pitch ability, just kind of separates those guys when you see them. I remember in spring training, Power stood on the mound and went like this and was pumping cheese by guys. You're like, as a hitter, you're like, is he serious? Like, you're looking at the pitcher going, is he serious?
Did he just do that?
Yeah. And just how you can mentally mess with an offensive player. It's not just the guy in the box. Because as a baseball player, you're in dugouts and you're watching the mound. You're watching, does he wiggle his finger on his fastball? Does he spread his glove on his changeup? You're looking for telltale things that are going to give you an advantage. But when you're out there and you're seeing a guy on the mound go like this, then he goes 94. You're like, did he just see it was a fastball?
Yeah.
And then he goes like this, and he drops a filthy change on you. You're like, okay, wait. Is he telling me every pitch? And how much can I trust this guy? Yeah. It's crazy how you can mentally just grind.
The time you sell out for it, then he throws you a breaking ball, and you're like, oh, yeah.
Then you rent your back, and then you're on the 10-day.
Yeah. I like how Greinke, what was he at? 98th pitch. He probably figured there's 2 outs. This is my last inning anyways. Runner on second. Maldonado and him are struggling with the sign that Greinke wants, and fastball away. Second side. We're just going second side. So he's letting him know. I think it was Martin was on second or something. I thought it was awesome. And then I saw something today on McCutcheon giving tossing the balls to the non-fans.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that guys are having fun and playing the game. But I wanted to ask you, Denny, put yourself in today's player's shoe at the major league level. It's almost like you're kind of going to those extended spring training games where there's really not a whole lot of fans. You got cameras on you. It's got to be hard to self-motivate every pitch into that kind of regular MLB season mode and take yourself out of spring training. What do you think? How are players kind of getting themselves up? And do you see the game being as fast as maybe if there were fans in the stands in terms of the speed of play?
I think just from an outsider looking into the big leagues this year and what goes on, I think the biggest difference is these guys having to really mentally challenge themselves to be able to be ready and to challenge themselves for their focus. You can not feel good when you go to the park and go through your daily routine and just kind of go through it, not really put much into it. And then the lights come on and you're like, oh, there's 40,000 here. I better go.
Yeah, the buzz in the stadium, right?
Right.
You can feel it.
So you can
at 6:30 for that 7 o'clock game.
You can
walk out there.
Really thrive off of that. Yeah. Now you don't have that, so I think it really makes players. The good ones that are thriving are really the ones that are having success. Are really have the ability to be able to minimize their focus and challenge themselves to be in that moment. But I think where everybody is impacted is baseball is all about routine. At home games, I show up at 1 o'clock. I go to the cage. I play cards in the kitchen for an hour, or whatever it is your routine is. Because of COVID, your ability to be at the field for that length amount of time doesn't exist anymore. So I think that time is compressed from when you get there up until really game time. How much work can I do in there? And I think players are probably a little bit more diligent in their work, a little bit more focused right when they get there. And I think some guys are thriving on it, and some guys are having good years. And then you get the typical guys like Mike Trout who are just phenomenal. And we're blessed to be able to be in an era right now to watch, one of, if not the best players to ever play the game.
I think watching it on TV too, like some of the stadiums, each of the individual stadiums are doing, I think, a better job of trying to make it sound more exciting. As far as listening to it on TV, it actually sounds like there's a lot of people in there. The organs going. There's a lot of stuff going. So unless you're actually looking around into the seats, you get that sense that there's still there's a buzz going on, even though I think some of the stadiums are doing a better job there. And then some of the games, it's, you know, it's like watching a minor league Monday night game. It's like, oh man, this is going to be rough.
You know, every time I watch one of the games and there's no energy and all that, I always think, it must be Denny Hocking bobblehead night.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, wrapping up here, it was nice to watch, you know, the top 10 the other night on ESPN, and see, you know, basketball, and I mean, even to see soccer, MLS is being played, and women's basketball and baseball, and it was a good mix, and hockey was in there.
Hockey playoffs. I mean, to me, there's nothing more exciting. Hockey playoffs are so fun to watch.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's good to see, at least, you know, we got something on TV now. So, you know, back it up a few months, you know, you weren't sure where everything was going. At least we have something to watch. So, but hey, Denny, man, thank you so much for being on the show. Really enjoyed it. Love to have you back if you're willing, and want to get send us some video of your son. Well, I want to put that up and you know, highlight him, and anything we can ever do to promote his efforts too. Just let us know. But, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, Denny. Thanks for representing. T-shirt looks good. We got to get Todd one. Yeah, we got to get Todd a T-shirt. I don't know if I have Todd's size. Todd's big bones. He's gonna look like.
Like I said, Tommy boy.
Tommy
I'm
boy.
good. I'm good.
Matt, I'll tell you what, Coach. A couple of weeks ago, you know, we tried to make this happen, and our schedules, the three of our schedules, just didn't link up. But it was great being on the show today, reliving some of our past times, and anytime I get an opportunity to talk baseball, especially with you, Coach, and you, Todd, man, I'm more than willing. So happy to come on, and grateful to come on, and I'd love to do it again.
Thanks,
All right,
Danny.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right, guys, take care.
All right. Hey, welcome back to All About the Game. Todd Blyleven, co-host Mike Micucci. Wow, what an awesome host with having Denny on. Thank you for bringing him on, Mike.
Nah, I had a feeling it was going to be pretty good. Denny's really good, interesting to talk to. Has a lot of personality, tons of stories. I'm glad we got to hear the one story, but there's tons of them. I mean, the Tom Kelly stories. He'll tell one too. We have him on the show, whatever, but he talks about how TK used to call the bench players like late in the game underneath the tunnel, and they'd be getting loose, and he wasn't sure which one he was going to use to pinch hit, and he'd kind of walk up to him, look him right in the eyes, and then maybe pick out the guy he was going to go with. And he's like, he picked me out the one day, and he's like, all right, he's got this one here, he's got one of these, and he's got just do the best you can. He's like, and he would almost push you out of the dugout like, whatever's going to happen, it's okay.
Just go. Good luck.
Yeah, just good luck to you. So, yeah, but this, you know, stories, personality. I really enjoyed, obviously, working together when I would go into town to watch his clubs play, and just sitting there and listening to him talk about the players before the game, the work that was being done, and we would just trade ideas. Hey, I'm seeing this, and he'd be like, oh wow, that's really good. I didn't see that. And he's like, well, I see this on this, and I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty good. You know, you're just going back and forth, kind of learning from each other. And there's a lot of things that I would see in field play wise that I would try and bounce off of him. And obviously, he was the infielder. I'd be like, hey, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? And he would walk me through some things. So it was really good. To have him on the staff.
Yeah, in his story, his journey and mission and message to kids about, you know, how you train in the dark prepares you for your play in the light, sort of thing. I probably just completely butchered that, but
I think you did that pretty good.
Yeah, the concept of it though, and then, you know, I mean, here's a guy that was told no, you know, you're not going to play, and his first thought in going to college was I'm going to be a journalist. I want to write about baseball, and ends up having an amazing career at the big league level, coaching, still in the game. Now has the opportunity to go pass all that knowledge, like yourself, to athletes and kids like mine. So it's just awesome. It was really cool to listen to him talk.
Yeah, we got to get him and your dad on together.
Yeah.
We won't have to do anything.
I know. We could just sit and just listen. Yeah. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah. Take it over.
Sit here. Well, hey, we're going to make that happen because my dad was, he was trying to be on the show today. He's flying to Minnesota to do the Twins games. But he's got a flight in about an hour, so he didn't have time. But definitely got to make that happen.
So how long is he going to be up there?
So I think he's up there for a while. He's only doing 16 games this year.
Yeah.
This is his last year with the Twins after I think it's 25 years. So he's still staying on with the Twins as, an advisor role.
Yeah.
And and still be a part of the brand and, everything like Rod Carew does with the game, and, get a chance to go down to spring training, talk to pitchers and just be a part of it. He loves it, and I'm sure you'll probably see him on MLB TV or ESPN or different games too.
So important to an organization to just make sure that the history is always kind of there. Yeah. I mean, you with the Yankees all the time, they're always parading their guys in. When you see.
Why not? I mean, to listen to my dad talk.
Other teams, they don't really embrace their history.
Oh, it's crazy.
I don't get it.
No, and I mean, we had my dad on, and I think the second episode was really where he starts talking about the fundamental of the breaking ball and his mindset on pitching and establishing the fastball. And I mean, bring anybody, Verlander, anybody in, they're all going to listen and watch that because the guy's fifth time all time in strikeouts, 60 shutouts career. Interesting story. So Dylan plays MLB The Show, the 2020 version, right? And so the last couple of years, they've had my dad on there with other legends, and I guess my dad's rated really high, like a 99. He's got the best curveball and all this stuff. And
which he should,
Which he should. So this year, Dylan's been trying to find my dad, but he hasn't been able to find his card. Well, come to find out, MLB The Show has my dad listed as Bill Blyleven, not Bert.
What?
Yeah, so that's why you haven't been able to find him. So anybody out there that's wanting to pitch with Bert Blyleven on MLB The Show, it's Bill this year. So Dylan puts up a post on Twitter tags MLB The Show, tags my dad. So it says, hey, MLB The Show, you butchered my grandpa's name. It's Bert, not Bill. So my dad gets back on there and says, hey, that Bill must be a pretty damn good pitcher, though. Yeah, it's funny. But having Denny on was really awesome. Listening to those stories, and it's cool, Mike, just to hear the camaraderie that you have too. I mean, you play this game for so long, you coach, you manage. It doesn't stop after maybe you're not putting a uniform on anymore. You're still coaching amateur, but the relationships that we've built over the years.
Yeah, there's
you and Bogey and Denny, and I mean, it's just been awesome to listen to. So I can't wait see what episode 12 brings.
And the good thing too is you're really helping young kids. I get to sleep in my bed every single night, which is awesome. And you don't have to travel anymore. But you're really helping kids that not just with the game, but just life stuff, things that can help them in life, and things that can help them. You're giving them life skills, but you're giving them skills to kind of help the game. And you can see, you see it. I see it on my team, just how they've changed over 2 months. You see it in kids that come to the facility and how they just start walking into the facility a little bit differently. Their confidence is up a little bit, and that carries through in a lot of different things. So, I mean, just to give back and be able to help young players and young kids and change kind of their little career is a lot of fun. And I know Denny feels the same way.
Well, I know, my son Dylan just really thinks of you. You know, he puts you up on a pedestal, and he knows you know the game, but the way that you relate it to him, he's able to understand and comprehend. And you're not dad, which is awesome. But
Yeah,
he,
I'm
you know,
going through that too.
yeah, he goes through, you know, that checklist. I mean, Dylan's been around the game and seen a lot and been around a lot of people, and he loves working with you.
Yeah.
And
It's
really
funny.
cool.
It was one of my first thoughts too when Coach Cox says, "Hey, I need you to kind of work with this guy or whatever, you know." And he gets, I'm like, Blyleven. I'm like, that name, that's not a common name or whatever. I'm like, so I said to him, I'm like, Blyleven, you mean like related to Burt Blyleven? He's like, oh yeah, you know, it's his, you know, whatever. And I'm like, what's he need lessons for? I'm like, you know, the pedigree is there or whatever. So, but like you said, it's not dad.
Right.
You know, my son plays lacrosse, okay? And I try and listen, you know, and pick up technique stuff so I can help him if we're just messing around in the backyard or doing whatever. But like, he likes to hit. Every once in a while we'll go to the cage and, you know, I'll teach him how to hit and you know, teach him how to throw the ball the right way and do different stuff like that. But there's times too where he's just like, Dad, just let me just back off.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, okay.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't matter. I mean, you're still dad. You got to live with him, and that's where I've tried to take a different approach to it too. Where you know, I got Mike. Mike's great. Dylan, you're hitting with Mike. How did that go? We have these conversations. Let's go fishing. You know, I went fishing with him a few weeks ago. It's just awesome. So just to be able to do the dad stuff and not the coach player stuff is really cool. But it's also hard too. You know, we've got a lot to offer, and you want to make sure they're armed with knowledge in the game. So when they do go step out on that field, they're confident. And
yeah. I know my biggest thing, and then that whether he's playing lacrosse or flag football or anything he's doing is just, I got to see, you got to have a good effort and a good attitude, you know, like it's the biggest thing I want to see, you know? And then when we get in the car afterwards on some of the lacrosse things, like, you know, there'll be certain games and I'll just pepper them sometimes with questions, you know, do you have fun?
Yeah.
What do you like about the game? You know, trying to get him to open up or talk a little bit. It's a little different. He's 10. You know, but I knew we were in trouble in soccer when I was like, "Hey, how is this going? You know, what's your favorite thing about soccer or whatever?" Like, snack. What? Oh, what are we doing?
Yeah. I like the oranges, Dad.
Yeah.
I don't want to go kick the ball. Yeah, that's funny. Well, hey, great show. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too.
And we'll get it going next week. So,
all right.
Everybody be safe out there.
Have a good one.